go. I was waiting for Jordan to jingle the bells, so there we go. Our guest today is Caleb Shomo, who
that is me.
Who I was just saying to. I was about to explain to Jordan how I knew you, but now that you're here, we can talk about that. So I think the first time we communicated was a bunch of years ago for either Band Happy or the Entertainment Institute. I don't remember which one it was, but it was Warped Tour.
Yeah, Warped Tour 2014, I want to say.
Which would have been Band Happy stuff, right?
Yeah. I remember because I did like a production thing. So I brought like a little rig out and just like broke down like in my DAW like how I build songs basically. And yeah, it was sick, man. But yeah, that was what, 6 years ago now? Jeez, dude.
Yeah, it's been a while. And I remember it's funny because obviously I've talked to you and I've talked to Thomas, your manager, over the past, bunch of months. But it was crazy because when I reached out to him a couple months back, I was trying to remember like when he and I had communicated last, and I think it was because of that. And I had thought it was like a year before. And I didn't realize how long it had been a gap, how big that gap was between then. But then I saw you was it Rock on the Range or one of those Midwest festivals together a couple years after that. And then, and then I saw you recently. We played a festival together in California. We did Self-Help together.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah,
it was great.
So so Jordan, we've known each other through music education and our respected bands and mutual just love and adoration and respect for what we both do, I guess. So at least I think I don't want to speak for you.
That's a good way to put it. Yes, it is definitely reciprocated. Man, I remember we played, I want to say it was somewhere in like Florida or one of the Carolinas. Maybe it was Carolina Rebellion. But do you remember that year that it got like rained out and we all ended up hanging out in that little like safe house thing? And you guys got to play because I remember watching you guys. Yeah. And we got canned. But I remember that was like the first time I really hung out with Periphery in general. I think like on a general more hang basis, but it was great, man. And you guys it's a great live band. Big fan.
Thank you, man. Well, likewise. I've always been into what you do. And this project for you, I mean, definitely, and for the band is just like taken off. It seems like
it's been doing all right, man. It's not bad.
Despite the craziness in the world, I think the reputation for Beartooth is pretty great. And it's funny. One of the things that always stood out to me was the name. And we don't need to go deep down that rabbit hole. But I just thought it was such a good fucking name.
Dude, I appreciate that. Well, I mean, it's literally a 2-second story. Everybody thinks there's some meaning to it. Our original bass player, Nick, still a great friend of mine. He grew up on Beartooth Court. Just put the two words together. There it is. But cool. Hey, it's easy to Google. That's a big thing. You get our band or you get like a motorcycle event, and that's about it. So I'll take it.
Yeah.
That's true. And you know what, Matt? I actually, I knew that. I did my 3.5 minutes of research today going to Beartooth Wikipedia, which is there. But Caleb, I want to share my introduction to you and your band. I think one of the things that has been fun for me, knowing Matt and doing projects like this podcast, is what I would consider like quote scene music. Post-hardcore, emo, pop-punk, things like that. I haven't really existed in those cultures in a very active way since maybe the mid-2000s.
Yeah.
But one of the bands that I have just kind of stuck with, would always see on tour annually, was Every Time I Die.
Oh, dude.
And so they did a run supporting you guys. Mm-hmm. And I believe you guys may have had a theme song on one of those WWE NXT pay-per-views as well.
Yeah, we did.
Yeah. So that may have been the first time I heard the name, and then when I saw you guys were taking Every Time I Die out, I kind of put that together. So seeing you guys perform what I believe was a sold-out show at Baltimore Soundstage was my first experience of you. What was really cool, I have a younger cousin who I've given some guitar lessons to as she grew up. She's like a fucking Beartooth fan, to the point where she brought her dad to like, like be the dad in the back for her at the show. So I was like, all right, like someone I know fucks with this band. And when I watched you guys, it was like, holy shit. I knew you headlined. I knew it sold out, but like the merch was on point. The production was on point. The stage presence was on point. I was like, this is a band who knows what the fuck they're doing.
Hey, man, I appreciate that very greatly. Very greatly. I mean, it's just been a lot of years of rocking and just trying to put on a good show, man. I mean, I love making records, don't get me wrong, but the live show is what I think is like the biggest part of our band. And always nice to hear that, man. Thank you so fucking much. It means the world. And I remember that show. That was a wild show, too. Love that venue. Yeah.
And I felt that because, look, bands create culture. I think the most successful bands create community. And when I was at your show, of course, there were people like me who were like the Every Time I Die fans. But everyone stayed and like you guys, it felt like a community. It felt like a safe environment. It felt like people were in it to be with each other in the experience of Beartooth. And sometimes you don't get that sense, even if it's a headline band at a show like that.
Hey, well, that is greatly appreciated, man. And I think that might have been one of the few nights that everybody stayed after Every Time I Die, because I don't know if you know what it's like to play after that band, but Jesus Christ, it is not fucking easy. They are literally one of the craziest live bands in the world. But yeah, I'll never forget that tour. That was our first time doing like a big, we'd done like one headliner prior, and it was in 300 cap rooms, 400 or 500s maybe, and then but that was like the tour where we started playing some House of Blues, getting into that like 700 to 1200 kind of range. And I mean, just talking about on the subject of Every Time I Die, I was still like, we couldn't fucking believe that we got them to do that tour, because they're one of my favorites of all time. Just amazing band, great people, maybe the best live hardcore band of all time. And but yeah, I mean, you're so right. It's just like that tour felt just community. It was just good vibes, good people, everybody just getting up there playing loud as hell and having a good time. And yeah, I mean, I will never forget that tour. And I'm glad you saw it, because man, that was a fucking fun one.
I was glad too, man.
I think you tried to, or you guys invited me down that night, and I don't know if I was around or if I was on tour too at that time. I don't even remember what it was, but I remember Justin and Caleb. Just so you know, Justin is Jordan's brother, who normally is also with us on the podcast, but he couldn't make it today. Which he might be a bigger Every Time I Die fan than Jordan is, and
by far.
And he's also he's like a legit Beartooth fan as well. So he was bummed he couldn't make it today, but
oh man.
But I think he I don't know, invited me down and I couldn't go, and I remember being bummed about it. But it's interesting. I don't think there's it's not an accident that you guys are doing really well, and that you do have all of the sort of I's dotted and the T's crossed. Every time that I've hung out with you guys, or seen you live, or communicated with your manager or anybody in the band, I always get this same sort of sense of professionalism, which is kind of rare across the board. I think the guys. I was going to say, that's
other than Tom, I'm surprised, but I'll take that. Tom's very professional. I am not so much, but I do. I
don't know, man. I think you are. I definitely think you are. I mean, what I was just going to say too is it comes off professional without being in your face, if that makes sense, because you guys are laid back and very cool and very down to earth. But I think that it's evident to me that there's like a professional aspect. And I always have thought that you guys, everybody in the band, is really good at the networking side of it. And I think a lot of that probably just has to do with the fact that you're all just easy to get along with and you're good people.
I appreciate.
But yeah, I mean, even the guys in the band who, it's funny, I haven't talked to any of them as much as I've talked to you, but in the chances that I've had to communicate with them, it's always been really pleasant, and it's always left like a thought of like, wow, I really like those guys. Like, I hope we get to tour together. I hope we get to play more shows together at some point,
Well, dude, I appreciate that, man. I mean, it really is, like, to me, such an important part of the band and of just my job in general, and like being in this business is because, I mean, after so many years, you just get sick of the like classic, like, nice guy asshole where they're like, clearly, or like managers or bands or whatever it is, where, they're nice to you if they think there's something to gain. And if there's nothing to gain, then they just could give a fuck. And I've always hated that. And I thought it was so dumb. And I don't know, it's just not the way I function. And I think good people should just meet good people and have a good time. And it's that simple.
Yeah.
And, so like down to getting our crew where we have it, getting the lineup where we got it. I mean, it's really just been years of like, I don't know, just kind of finding the right people. But now, man, I couldn't be happier. I couldn't be happier with the gang, with the band. Like, the whole unit is real solid, and especially the team, like management. Tom is incredible. Other manager Brett's incredible. Dave Shapiro is our booking agent, he's the only person I've been with since the very, very beginning of my music career in like 2007 or 8.
So did he do Attack too?
Yeah. So
Okay.
he did Attack, and then he stuck around for Beartooth. But just people like that, I mean, that's who I want to be involved with, is just good people that, it's like if we all just help each other become better people and become better musicians and enjoy ourselves, like that's all it needs to be. I'm so far anti the like be a dick until you get what you want kind of thing. Cause it's like, that can work out for maybe like a tour for like you get a good guarantee and the headliner's like, well, fuck, we really want this band. I guess we'll just deal with them, but they're being dicks. And then you're never going to tour with that band again. It's just like, it can just be simple. It's like, we're all going to go out. We're all going to have a good time. I don't know. Rambling, but it's very important to me.
Yeah, good. And I mean, I sense that it should be, because of that, like that mentality too. I don't think I can't remember a time in the past, at least 5 years, where we've had a bad tour because of the people that we choose to have around. And it's just that mentality. Talking about your team, again, Tom is so easy to work with. I don't know if I've ever worked with Brett, but Dave, obviously, I've done a bunch of stuff with, and he's a legend in the business. So it's no surprise that these guys not only are successful, but it's just you maintain those good relationships because they're just good people. Yeah, so,
it just makes you want to work with those people. It's never like a dread when you see that call or that email. It's always like, oh, fuck yeah, what can we do to help each other out? That simple.
No, that's awesome. Well, I'm glad, because obviously there's stuff that, I'm obviously, I don't want to go too far down this road either, but, when I reached out to you about some stuff with Get Good Drums, I was excited just because I know you as a person. I know you're a good dude. I didn't ever think like, I wonder if he'll give us the time of day. We're some small company, and like, I don't know. I approached it more like, hey, I'm gonna hit you up as a friend, see if you're interested in doing this stuff, and it's working out. So I'm just glad that we've been able to find ways to continue to do stuff. And it's funny, man, the people that I continue to talk to or reach out for the podcast or try to just do shit with, all usually stem from the experience that I had with them through the band Happy Days, of like getting people on board with that, knowing, because there were a lot of artists who I communicated with during that time who really, and I'm not faulting them, but it just, in some ways it said a lot about them, who just didn't really get what it was about, like the importance of, you know, giving back, the importance of creating another opportunity for the fans and for yourself, looking at it from sort of I don't know, just like a new perspective. And the people who really got it are like the people who I found that I also connected with and was able to have good conversations with and just maintain good relationships. And I think you're one of those people. And there's a bunch of other great people too that you know that you're friends with also, just mutual friends. And it's nice that there was a common thread there, you know?
Yeah. Well, dude, I mean, that was such a fucking cool thing. I mean, even just for a quick little blip, like for me to be able to do something that was like how often do kids get to look at a full, you know, Cubase breakdown of a session and get to talk about like what it's like to make a song and literally being right there, like face to face. And it was usually, you know, only like, I think tops, it was maybe like 7 people. So I felt like it was always a really personal thing. And it, I don't know. I know it, like when I was a kid and being a music fan, that would have been the absolute coolest shit in the world. So I love that idea. And I was so glad I got to be a part of it.
No, that's all. Well, I'm glad you did, man. It certainly helped, I think pave the way for a lot of people. Like obviously the company isn't around anymore, but I mean, now more than ever, people are sharing on Twitch. They're, you know, offering online lessons. They're creating a lot of, you know, independent opportunities for fans and their following to get involved with what they're doing. And I don't think it's not because of that, but I think it helped to make those things become more accessible by having people like you willing to offer those kinds of services, those kinds of opportunities, which is actually it's a good kind of segue, I think, into what is going on right now. And one of the themes that we've had over the past bunch of months with the podcast has just been kind of getting everybody's take on how they've been able to approach this pandemic and what they're doing from, you know, an individual perspective. Not everybody that we have on is in a band or is a musician, but we try to work with different creatives and different professionals in their own right. And that's one of the things that we like to talk about. So I'm just curious, in any direction, whether it's just like personal growth or, you know, professionally, what you've been doing and how you've been sort of approaching this time, and if it's, you know, shaped you in a different mold in any way.
Yeah, that's a great question. Well, I mean, to start it off, we got insanely lucky with the timing of everything. And I know that, you know, we are one of the few that got away with it the way we did. But, you know, we finished our last tour of our record cycle in Europe. The last show was like March 6th. And then everything shut down.
Yeah, I don't want to cut you off. We finished February 16th. So
dude,
we got lucky too.
So I remember you get it.
You and I talked about this a little bit, I think, when we hopped on the phone before. But yeah, okay. So keep going.
We get done March 6th. Already had like planned for all this time off. You know, we like saved up a bunch of money with the business to like be able to cover salaries and cover, you know, all that stuff. And it was like, all right, this is just time to make a record. We're going to take some real time off, which we haven't done in a long time. And I mean, I flew home and a few days later, everything was just over. It was done. And I saw all these people, you know, putting out records and going out on, or having these tours lined up, and it's all just like getting shut down. And so I feel terrible for all those people, but I will not, you know, I cannot say anything, but we are extremely blessed. Like we got lucky, super, super lucky, and kind of got away with it. So, you know, for me, I was already working on an album on the road. I had, I think like 14 songs, like a bunch of ideas. I like started touring a little rig and writing out there, which I'd never done before. And I fell in love with it. So I got a huge head start on the record anyway, which is cool. But then, you know, it's been a lot of up and down. It's been those few weeks where I'm just like, I can't stop, and I'm just song after song, and I'm working in the studio, and I'm feeling really, really good about everything. And then I'll have those weeks where there's just nothing at all. And I'm just like, I don't know what to do. I have no creative energy, nothing like that. So, I don't know. But the main thing that I've been taking from this is, honestly, I'm sure a lot of people are saying this, especially in the touring world, but learning to not take shit for granted. Like, take tours for granted, take, any of it for granted, because, I couldn't wait to get off tour. We had been touring for so long, and just generally speaking, I myself haven't taken like a real break, like a long break, since the beginning of Beartooth, even before the beginning of Beartooth, since probably like the second Attack record. It's just always been going constantly. It's either I'm working on records for other bands. If Attack had time off, I was working on Beartooth stuff when I was still in Attack, and then that was over. Then Beartooth started, and it was just like go, 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 go. And, there's a lot of times where I felt overwhelmed and like, man, I could really use some time away. And then this happens, and I'm like, it's just a lot of reality sets in of like how important it is to have a stable job and to have just, I don't know, income and like a routine that keeps you sane and, all these little things. So, I don't know. That's what I've been trying to focus on, and just from a personal aspect. But from a work aspect, it's been kind of cool because I've never had this much time and freedom to make a record. There's always, just the way we don't stop, there's always something else on the books constantly. There's always tours. I mean, we have tours booked 2 years from now. You know what I mean? We're just always ready to roll. And now with everything shut down, I've had nothing to do but really focus on this album. And like, instead of, okay, we got a deadline, it's got to be done by this time, or we're done in the studio at this point. Like, I just invested some more money into my home studio, got it up to where I wanted it, and I've just been working. And that's been a really cool thing to be able to just completely like check out from any time or any worry or anything like that, and just work and just write. And I mean, at this point, I have like 16 songs. I have like 16 songs now that I'm like, all of these I want on the record. So which is rare. Usually it's, I know these 10 are great. These few, we got a couple, and these will probably be B-sides. So like, I've had a lot more time to kind of dial in tracks and dial in mixes and just really work on my craft, because I haven't had this much time to just sit in a studio and practice. Even things like, I'll have buddies just be like, if you got a song, like, I'll just mix it for free. Just like, shoot me some stems, like, just so I can run some reps and just like remember what it's like to really get in that mix zone. And, busting out old amps that I haven't used in a while. And, even doing that stuff, like the Get Good stuff. Yeah, it's just been cool to kind of like get back to producing and like focus on that for a while.
No, and I know Jordan has something he wanted to say, but I was curious. So are you self-producing, mixing, all that stuff for this particular record? You're doing it yourself?
Yep.
Awesome.
Yep. So yeah, like the last one, Disease, I've always self-produced. Self-produced them and then recorded them. But Disease, I was like, I want to do like the full big studio experience. And it was kind of like me trying to do the like analog record thing, really. I mean, I did a lot of it at Blackbird. I did a lot of it with Nick Raskulenix in Nashville. And it was real. That whole record, those are real drum takes. There's no samples on the record. They're, real old vintage amps and real guitar takes and like all that stuff.
Did you play drums on that record too?
I did. Yeah.
Okay. I thought so. Yeah.
Yeah. I still play all the instruments on everything, but it was like, it was great. Don't get me wrong. It was super cool, but I don't know. I just kind of realized, I was like, you know what? I learned I really learned to do what I do in the box. Like that's, I came up, my first real recording experience was Joey Sturgis, who's kind of like the godfather of a lot of modern, recording and doing it in the box and whatnot. So I've really been diving back into that and just trying to expand on what I know as opposed to, expanding on like getting all this crazy analog gear and all these consoles and trying to break my arm doing drum takes and stuff. I don't know. So, it's been a really cool experience just getting back to that, like back to the basics, back to everything I know and just writing and just having a good time doing it.
That's badass, man.
Caleb, I'm curious, and you're kind of, I think, freezing up a bit on Matt and I's end, but we're with it. And if your audio's rolling, like, we're fucking good.
Okay, yeah, my DAW's rolling hard right now.
Yeah, we're good.
All good. So if I reference anything that you have said, that's the reason why.
No worries.
But I'm curious, man. Like going back to say March 1st, 2020. Did you have like a sense of what you wanted the year to be, knowing that this was a significant time of a break in a sense from the touring life? Obviously, making a record was going to play into it. But it seems like now you just have a lot more fucking time at home, really focusing on a record. But were there other things even outside of music that you had your eye on, whether it was other people or hobbies or business interests that you kind of, were maybe very consciously prepping for to really spend time with over the spring and summer?
I mean, to be honest, it really, all I was focusing on was music, was focusing on the band and just, getting that thing rolling. Because the original plan, before all this happened, at least for me, like in my head and what I thought I wanted to do, was because I got such a big start on the album on the road, I was like, I want to just put this thing out. Like, we take a bit of time off, tighten up all the screws, and I mean like 3-4 months. And then right back, we're touring summer, full tour. We're touring in the fall, headliner, whatever. And that was what I was really prepping for. And then when it all happened and, the tours started falling through and then everything kept getting pushed back and then, the record kept getting pushed back and all that. I've been focusing a lot more on golfing, for one. I'm an avid golfer, have been for a long time.
I saw that on your Instagram.
Yeah, I'm really, really into golf, but which has honestly been really good for me because to me, what I love about golf is I feel like it's the one place in the world where I'm not thinking about music or I'm not thinking about something with business. It's just like all I'm thinking about is being out on the course and hitting the shot. That's it. And nothing else can do that for me. Like check me out that far. So I've been doing that a lot, which has been really cool. My brother and me joined like this nice golf club that's down the road from my house. And so I've been spending a lot more time with him, which is great. I don't know. I've been trying to just find some sort of center in life because like all it has been for years and years is just Beartooth. And before Beartooth, it was Attack or producing records or mixing or whatever. So I don't know. It's been cool to kind of like focus on just my own mental well-being for a minute and just trying to like calm down and, take a step back.
I think that's super healthy, dude. And I'd probably argue that that's probably going to pay out well in your music career in the sense of developing yourself in other ways outside of that. So I guess here's my question now. Look, hopefully you guys can tour in 2021, but I don't think anyone really knows if that's possible at this point and when we'd have a sense, especially, bands like yours where you're playing to maybe over 1,000 people in a certain room if you're headlining at this point. So that's going to be more difficult than if you're playing to a couple hundred per se in a larger cap room. So have you kind of reassessed any sort of strategy as far as releasing music? Do you want to hold on to all of it because you're committed to an album format? Or, have you thought about even just putting out some singles as a way to continue that relationship with the fan base right now to tie you over until a touring cycle?
That's a great question. At least for me, like I've just kind of fallen off the face of the earth, which has been nice in a way. Like I love not having to do anything, and I'm already terrible as it is with social media. Like the Instagram's the last thing holding on because I literally need to have something just for my job. But I've just been kind of checking out, but I really don't know. I think the important thing to me is that when the record comes out, we can still play some sort of shows, and like real shows, not like live streams. And I'm sure we'll end up doing a live stream at some point. There's talk right now of us doing a drive-in show, which for our band, I think is going to be hilarious. But I'm down. We get to play a gig, and I don't know. Hopefully it turns into a demolition derby or something. You never know. But we're just trying to find ways to kind of like, I guess, stay motivated and like just feel like the band still matters. Because after so long, you just feel beat down. But, even little things like, we got together and we did like album promos. Like we just did the photo shoot for the record and like, or, working with our creative team on like album art, things like that. Just these little things that kind of still keep the wheels turning and keep us motivated. But I think, when we come back, because we're so focused on our live show, and I think that is such an important part of our band, we'll probably wait to put out the full record when we know we can tour on it. And like that's because I really want people to be able to like hear that record and then, they're coming to town so I can go see the record live. Because that's still extremely important to me. But I'm sure it's inevitable. We're going to drop some singles and probably do music videos and things like that. But I'm just hoping that sometime sooner than later we get some sort of answer, because basically the record's ready and it's just kind of like dialing it in, fine tuning. I've been working on mixing and trying to get better at mastering and little things like that. But when we come back, I would not doubt that we go on tour for like 2 years straight. That's my guess. But we have some great stuff lined up. Hopefully everything's back in action by then. But yeah, we got some really cool things. But I guess another thing to kind of carry on from there is one thing I've been thinking about, because you were talking about how, the format is going to kind of change. Hold on. Is my internet going? Are we there?
You're good.
We're good.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Sorry, I was... And, because the format is going to be different. The tours we had booked, like, I don't know if we're going to be able to put on the same type of show yet. That's the thing that we're waiting on, because we had a very specific, like, production, like this light rig and staging and amps with fire coming out of them and all this madness. Like, will we be able to do that the same? I don't know. But honestly, for us, like, even if we have to go back to a fucking van with like 8 dudes and just grinding out like 200 caps, like, we're just dying to play shows, just absolutely dying. But hopefully, we can still put on the show that we want, because all the production and everything we have ready for some of these tours that we have lined up is awesome. It's real badass, I must say so myself. A lot of fire, a lot of big staging and cool arena shit, and I don't know. So hopefully we get to do it.
You guys will. This isn't going to be forever.
Yeah.
One of the rays of light that I've been trying to see through all this, and a comparison, I guess, is when you do tour so much, it's nice to be in a relationship, like with my wife, because you spend a lot of time together, and then you get to go away. And when you go away, it reminds you how much you love about that person, how much you miss that person. It makes coming back like this beautiful reunion. And it's like you're starting, you get to like date again for the first time, you know, it's like this new thing.
Yeah.
I've never, and I can tell you've never really been in a situation in the past bunch of years where it's not about the wife now, it's about the job, the touring. Right. So whether you're in a van with, you know, 8 dudes or you're playing at a drive-in, it's that same feeling of excitement that you get when you have time away, to miss that thing, to realize how much passion and love you have for that thing, and then to be reunited with it in a whole new way. It's like a whole new perspective, which I'm sure makes you excited to get back out on tour, and everybody else who truly loves doing this. I mean, it's...
Oh my God.
I'm with you, man. I'm with you because, you know, we would get burnt out too. We would, you know, we did a lot of touring in the past year or two, and like we were ready to come home for a bit. And some of us more than others. I mean, Misha talks openly about it. I mean, he was ready to throw in the towel for a little bit on touring. I mean, he just wasn't sure if he wanted to do it anymore. And it's funny because the pandemic happens and we all are just like, it was a nice reality check, a big smack in the face of how much we do love it. And I've had, I wanted to ask you about this because I've personally had a lot of ups and downs throughout this whole experience. And even recently, you know, even after having a lot of good days, I've had a number of rough days where it's like, man, I need a change. And I don't mean like going out to dinner, you know, or
right.
like going for a drive. I mean, touring has been a part of my life for as long as I can remember, you know, since 2006, probably.
Yeah.
Touring's been a part of my life, right? 2006, 2007 with different bands, and travel has been a huge part of my life. And I can't do those things right now. And I'm really yearning for that, even if just for a week. You know, like my wife and I are going, her family has a beach house. We're going to go to the beach house in a couple weeks, just the two of us. And I mean, even that, just getting away and having a 4 different walls. And that's the thing that I think I'm missing on one level. But then when I really put my mind to it and think about what it is that I am yearning for, it's like, it's being with the crew, it's being with the band, it's playing the show. I mean, that's obviously the most important thing, but it's everything about being on tour. You know, it's waking up in a different city and going to a city that you've been to a ton of times and going to that spot for coffee, which I've talked about a ton. It's just it's amazing how much I find myself like having dreams about those things now. Which I never really had before when I was doing them as often. So with that being said, I guess, you know, what I was curious about for you is, have you had some rough or dark days within this pandemic because of what your life has been like for so long, this unprecedented change? I mean, I'm really glad you've had a lot of things to focus on. Golf is a huge thing mentally. Physically, it's fun too. It's an enjoyable thing. Music has been a focus, but I mean, have you had those days where you're like, fuck, like, I don't even know what to do with myself?
Dude, I've had those like months, man. I mean, for real. Yeah. It's just because it was so abrupt, and like we had a lot of crazy stuff happen regardless of just, you know, the COVID thing in our camp. There was like a lot of big shifts and moments and things going on, and a lot to process, and not having, you know, even those one-offs. Like we had one-offs booked for like April. We had a couple, you know, like go out, see the gang. You know, we probably had at least 1 or 2 one-offs every month. You know, just something to like get back with the guys and, you know, go out.
Were you guys going to do like radio shows too around that?
Yeah,
like late spring, early summer?
Yeah. So we had some like radio gigs. We weren't really doing tours, but we had a full tour booked for the summer actually that we didn't get to do. in August that was going to be like epic. And that was a huge bummer. But, you know, I mean, I think for me, it's just like what you said, man. It's that shock. It's that shift of realizing that, like, oh, I don't have this other side of my life that I spend, you know, me and you probably both have spent more time on the road in the last 10 years than we have at home. And when that goes away, you don't realize how much it does for you mentally, how much it does for you physically. Like, I mean, I didn't do jack shit physically for like 2 or 3 months. Like, I was just laying on the fucking couch and just eating garbage and drinking a bunch of beer. And then, like, I start trying to, like, you know, get back into, you know, doing vocal practice and doing, like, going out and exercising and working out and getting back in shape. And I'm just like, holy shit, this is so much harder when I'm not playing an hour set every night, or at least, like, you know, it's not exactly like taking a week or 2 off. Then you get back in and you're like, oh, I'm a little out of shape. It's like when you have a few months off of doing nothing for your body and then try and, like, kick back into it, you realize, like, how much that does for you. And I think it's the same thing mentally. Like, and everybody has, you know, their whatever touring is for them. It's like whether it's their job or their one of their hobbies or whatever. It's like touring, though, consumes my life. You know, that is, like, I mean, that's probably the biggest part of my life is touring, is being out on the road, traveling, playing shows, having a job to do, shit like that. So, yeah, it's been rough in a lot of ways, but it's also just taught me to kind of try and readjust and, like, understand that this isn't permanent, as much as it may feel that way certain times. And I guess try and, like, find other just more normal ways to feel sane. Like, instead of, you know, playing a show, it's like go out and run in the morning, play some golf. I don't know, like, make a good meal. And it's just these, like, weird shifts that I'm trying to make. But it's definitely on the up. There was a lot of down for the first probably few months of it. But I'm starting to realize that, like, I don't know, there's a lot more I can do with my life than just sitting around and being bummed about shit, you know, even if I can't really do any of the normal things that I'm used to doing.
Totally. Yeah. Well, speaking of that, I was actually curious, like, if you've over time developed a routine now. You know, you mentioned whether it's running in the morning or playing golf, but do you feel like now you have yourself on a bit of a regimented schedule? Like, when we're on tour, there are slotted times every day where you need to be somewhere. There's a regimen to follow. There's flexibility in that. But I've always said that regimen that I keep on tour, I love it. It's like the best thing for me because it keeps me focused, and I'm on the ball all day. I'm so much more on it, I feel like, when I'm on tour because of those moments than I am when I'm home. So I'm curious if you've created that in some way for yourself now at home, if you have sort of a dynamic now where it's like, you know, you wake up around this time, you do these things, which are your rituals, you go to bed a certain time. Like, have you fallen into that?
A little bit more recently. I mean, usually when I'm at home, like, I just do fucking nothing. Like, when I'm on tour, obviously it's very regimented. It's like sound check. I'm there. I'm, you know, checking the front of house mix. I mix our ears for everybody. So it's like I have a job. I'm mixing ears. I'm practicing. I'm, you know, making sure I'm eating certain meals at certain times. So when I perform, it's, you know, I hit that sweet spot. And,
yep.
You know, when I first got back, what I usually do when I'm home, at least, is like, you know, I'm up till 3, 4 in the morning, playing video games, watching TV, wake up whenever, grab a meal if I'm hungry, you know, because it's always so brief. It's always just that kind of like ultimate checkout, just reset the brain to get back into that regimented touring life. But now, yeah, it's way more normal. Like, I'm trying to find myself gigs or like kind of create gigs for myself. Like, all right, this week I'm going to remix this record that I mixed however long ago. So I'm going to wake up, go for a run, or wake up, play golf in the morning. And then like, all right, I'm going to do, an hour of reamping, and then I'm going to work on mixes, and I'm going to try and give myself a deadline for this track and whatever. So I'm trying to kind of get more into like a production routine of just giving myself like dedicated time to be in the studio. That's focused work. And that's been huge. And it's honestly just made me get a lot better at producing and mixing, which has been cool. Because, I mean, I realized after Beartooth started, I used to mix records and be working all the time. And then when Beartooth started, it took up so much time that I couldn't work with any other bands. I mean, I did like a handful of co-writes, maybe, since Beartooth started. I don't think I mixed another band's album. I think I've mixed a couple of singles. But now I'm like trying to get back to my like second love, which is producing. Yeah. Which honestly is maybe my first love. It's like I love being in a band and stuff, but producing and mixing, like that's my job. That's what I want. That's going to be my career until I'm retired. Because I mean, Beartooth can only go on so long. But
it's rare too, man. Like you have such a unique skill set to be able to play so many instruments well, to have the knowledge of that side, to have the knowledge of the technical side of it too. I mean, the best producers in the world are the ones that are multi-instrumentalists who really have a grasp of that. So I mean, it makes sense to me that would be a passion, Right. And what a blessing in a way to have that time home to focus on.
Oh, dude,
it's huge.
I mean, it really is. Like I've definitely turned the corner in realizing what a blessing this time was, just for me and my job and my career, and just for me mentally to like get so much time in back into the working space again of like mixing and producing and writing music. Because, I only write one record every 2 years, and I used to write constantly, whether it would be writing for other people or writing for my band or whatever. I was always just working and writing and writing and writing. And, but then it, that turned into with Beartooth, like right when I'm home, tour is tour, and that's it. And so now, just being able to like, I guess kind of get a taste of what life is like as a producer full time, has been cool. And it's been very eye opening, and like, this is what I want to do. And it's confirmed that because, if I didn't have this, I would lose my fucking mind. Like I would have been going crazier than I have been going since this whole shit went down. So, just trying to take it for what it is and, soak up the blessing in whatever way it comes.
Well, that's what I've been thinking for the past bit in this conversation. I mean, how fortunate for you, Caleb, in the sense that you have this broad set of skills as a musician to continue being a musician during a global pandemic. I mean, there's many other musicians who they may still be able to write, and maybe there's more responsible ways to jam with other people. But for you to be able to produce and to mix and to write your songs and to play different instruments and to have the technology to support that in a 2020 world. I mean, aside from the live show experience, you get to continue being a musician in the world. And I guess you answered the question earlier. I was thinking, was you being like an engineer or someone, a producer, someone who mixes, was that something that was naturally interesting to you? Which you let us know it seems like it was. Because for some, it's their only way to produce music. I mean, not everyone has the financial means to go to a studio when they want to. Mm-hmm. So people learn the technical skills just to continue being a musician. But the fact that you naturally love it and have gravitated toward it and have even noticed, this is a way to be a working musician for my lifetime. I mean, that sets you up really, really well, especially when shit gets rough like it has the past few months.
Yeah, man, it's been It's been awesome. Like, I didn't even think, when I was a kid, like real young, we took like a field trip to a recording studio, and I've always been obsessed with music. It is the one thing that I'm for sure is somewhere in my DNA. Like both sides of my family are very, very musically talented people, musically driven people. And it was just always something that was super, super important to me. And then, I love playing. And then I was a kid and we like took this field trip to a studio, which I think way more schools need to do. And I was like, oh shit, like I want to be a session musician. Like this would be awesome. Cause I was like nervous. I didn't like being in front of people. And, obviously like ended up in the band world and being a frontman and whatever. But, my first love is playing instruments, is playing drums, is playing guitar, bass, whatever. Like singing is honestly the last thing on the list. It's just kind of where I ended up. And I love to sing now, but, when I first did, I didn't even want to. It was just out of necessity. Like our band needed a singer and I could kind of get my way around it. And then I learned from there. But, so then it really all kind of happened at the same time. Like I joined Attack and we were a local band. And then very quickly we got signed, went and did our first album with Joey Sturgis. And I just sat behind his computer the entire time. I was just sitting there watching and it was like, this makes so much sense to me. Like I just got it. I understood what he was doing and how it worked and how he was piecing things together. And then, right when we left, I got a laptop and I was like, hey man, like I want to make demos. What would I use? And he was like, get Cubase. So I got Cubase and my life changed. That was like one of the most pivotal moments of my entire life. And that was when I was 15 years old. So I started touring full time and learning how to record all at the same time. And it started with just like, I'm going to make demos. And then that became, I can manipulate the frequencies and mix and compression and and then I just went to YouTube University and for 2 years of just like no sleep and sitting on a laptop with computer speakers just figuring it out. And then start doing local bands and start getting a few signed band gigs and then producing our own records. And I got really lucky that I fell in love with it when I did, because I always knew that was the long-term plan. And, I've seen so many people in the touring world and in bands that think, like the band is it. Like, this is all I'm going to do. And that's life. And, I was very, very fortunate that I found producing. So even at a young age, it was like I was able to get a house. First thing I did was built a studio in the basement and started working and trying to get like real gigs. And it's like, no, I got a real studio now and I can do full records and I can house the bands. And, I got real lucky, and I'm just trying to like set up for the long term from a young age. And it's just something that, again, to bring this whole thing back now in 2020, when the band is pretty much non-existent, it's cool to like see how that panned out for me. And it's just a massive fucking blessing. And I'm really glad I made that choice,
I'm really glad you shared that, man. And look, a lot of the people that are going to be watching or listening to this conversation are musicians or creatives. Of course, most, that's not their career or the ways that they're going to end up making most of their money over a lifetime. But, I mean, some of the things that we're talking about, whether going to the beginning of the conversation and both you talking about, like, relationship building, being a decent, nice person within a business context, and things play out well long-term. Or you learning on the job. I mean, you were a member of a band, and it wasn't your responsibility to pay attention to the production process, but you chose to do that. And there's infinite ways that we can do that in whatever creative community or profession that any of us ever interact with.
Totally.
I'm wondering, to me, it seems intuitive that having a band like Attack and maybe other bands prior to that set you up to learn a lot for when you started the Beartooth project. So clearly you learned a ton about the production process, but I'm curious, even when you were in Attack, for instance, were you paying attention and learning about other things, whether it was branding or merchandising or licensing and syncing or contracts? touring and that business. Was that something that did you pay attention to these things in the sense of wanting to be a sharp entrepreneur within music more generally?
Yeah, the main things that I think I focused on in those early years was, what did I like about touring with bigger bands? What did I not like about touring with bigger bands? Like, what did they do specifically? How did their crews treat us? How did they treat us? Things like that. So that, nowadays in the touring world, if you're on a Beartooth tour, like, you're going to be fucking taken care of. And that is extremely important. That is there's no wiggle room on that policy. That is very important for our camp. Anybody that works for us, any bands that we tour with, anybody in our camp at all, whatever, we want to put together the best environment that we possibly can. And that's from, honestly, the biggest tour we did that made me really think about that, was we did a Slipknot tour, when Beartooth was pretty young, and I, just couldn't believe it. We're like, it was us, Slipknot, and Suicidal Tendencies. And I was like, wow, there's no fucking way. This is completely out of our zone. And what is this going to be like? Are these guys going to be dicks? We got to stay out of their way and make sure we don't fuck anything up. And they were the greatest touring party, period. I mean, they took such good care of us. It was like, we were part of fucking Slipknot. I mean, their crew were so nice, so accommodating, down to every single thing. Basically, they're like, if you're on this tour, you've earned it. We chose you to be on this tour, and we're going to treat you like you deserve to be here. And that's how it fucking should be.
It's a great feeling.
And I will never forget that. Never forget that. So I've always taken that to heart. And then that's how we tour, is if you're on our tour, whatever you fucking need, let us know. Obviously, there are certain things that are just tough, but whatever we can do to realistically accommodate, whatever we can do to help, to make you feel more comfortable, to hang out, pizza parties, fucking little things like that, making sure everybody gets their rider. And it's just, those little things go such a long way. So I think that was a huge thing I learned when I was younger, from focusing from a touring side of just who I wanted to be. And then also, you brought up contracts. That's a fucking big deal. That is so many years of your life that you are signing away to a group of people who are literally going to collect the money you earn from your music. They're going to try and manipulate your product into what they think is more marketable, and a lot of times is what you think is less honest. It's so fucking huge. And, I got lucky enough when I was young to work with some great people and to learn what a good working relationship is, to learn what a bad working relationship is. And, now, so I'm signed to Red Bull Records now. And, and during that whole process of Beartooth getting signed, because it was wild. Honestly, when it started, I didn't think Beartooth was really going to be much of anything. And then, people started catching wind, and we're kind of, then honestly, it was Tom started managing, and then it was just fucking labels galore and all this stuff. And it all came down to who were the best people for the job. It was not about the numbers. And because the numbers are going to come, and you're going to, if you believe in your product and you're working real fucking hard, they're going to show up. It's about, are these people going to work with you to put out what you think is your most honest product, to put out what you love and something that you're willing to stand behind for years and years and years? Because, the songs don't go away. The songs are going to be around forever. And, if you're with one of those labels or one of those management teams or whoever it is, that's we need this big radio single. We're going to make you go work with this producer or this co-writer, and this person's going to mix it, and blah, 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 blah. If that's what you want, then great. But for a lot of people, it's not. And for Beartooth, it was really specific. We're sitting down with some really big labels, and basically telling them, this is what it is, and it is not going to change. Are you okay with that? Like, actually okay with it? Like, at the time, I was 19 years old. I was like, I'm a 19-year-old guy.
Crazy.
I'm going to write this music. I'm going to mix it. I'm going to produce it. And you're going to put it out. And you're going to trust it. Where are you at? And, you know, some labels got it. Some labels didn't. And that's where I landed on Red Bull, is I felt like the team there and the people there understood what the point was. They understood that the point wasn't to get fucking enormous and make a shitload of money and be rock stars and big signing bonuses and whatever. You know, the point of this is to do something that I love, for them to be involved with something that they love and they understand is an honest product and is really just a guy trying his best. And like, if it fails because of me, I'm okay with that. But if it fails because, you know, there were so many cooks in the kitchen and there was so much work to try and manufacture this product that's dishonest, that people can fucking see right through, then I couldn't live with that. And that's where, you know, I landed on that contract and with that company, is because they got it. And I think that's something that a lot of people have a hard time realizing, and that it takes time to learn. And thankfully, you know, like I said, I had a lot of situations where I was like, this is great working with this label. I had a lot of situations that were like, this is terrible working with this label, you know, when I was younger. And growing up and being able to have that clarity when it came time to really making, you know, signing the biggest deal of my life, it was huge. And so, yeah, I guess if I could pass on any wisdom to people listening, whether that's, and this isn't just for recording contracts, this is just a job in general. Like, you gotta, if you're just trying to do something you love and you're blessed enough to be able to be in that situation where, you know, whether it's a creative job or whatever, you got to be with people that fucking get it, that just understand what the end goal is. And if the end goal is just purely making a product that's going to make shit fuck tons of money and you don't really care about the quality of it, then it's rarely going to work, because it's just this formula that, like, for creatives, people see right through it. Because, you know, music listeners don't listen to music most of the time because they're like, oh, this is some broad, generic, lyrical song with these same 4 chords and I can just, it works, so I'll listen to it. It's like, no, people love bands like fucking Nirvana and, you know, fucking Metallica and like all these bands, Rage Against the Machine, that were so big because they put out real shit and they had people with them that believed in what they did. And, you know, that to me is like, all in all, to bring this all back, that's the most important part about being a creative, is being surrounded by people that have that goal in mind of putting out the most pure, honest product possible. And if you do that and you truly believe in it, the success is going to come one way or another. But if you're just chasing the success, then you're not going to be creative and it's just going to be bullshit.
Amen.
I couldn't have articulated that better.
Thank you. It was a bit of a rant, but I was on a roll there, so I just kept rolling with it.
No, I mean, you would fit well in Periphery. Let's just put it that way. When
hell yeah,
you know, when we were looking for new managers, when we were deciding what to do about a label, when we finished up with Sumerian, I mean, these were the conversations we had with Sumerian during our whole career, with, you know, our whole term with them. And those guys are great. Ash is great. And he knew from day one, even just how Misha negotiated the deal back in the day, he knew what he was signing up for. It didn't stop him from trying. But, you know, they'd come to us with this idea or that idea, and we'd be like, no, it's not what we want to do. It's just not what we want to do. And then when we found our new, you know, our current manager, who now is not new, we've been with him for a while now, you know, we had that conversation that, you know, you basically mimicked exactly what we said. This is what it is. This is how we are. If that works for you and you're into it, fuck yeah. If not, no hard feelings, you know? And
exactly.
It's so important It's so. I think people forget that though, and maybe we're at a time, and I don't know. Maybe I'm not right in this, but and it's my own just perception of it. But I think we are at a time where enough people are saying the right things, like what you just said, and there are enough voices out there, making sure that we knock this into people's heads to where they're getting it. And there's less of this sort of I don't even know the word that I want to use, but there's just, I think people are going to hold their ground a lot more and focus on creativity, and they kind of have all the tools out there to be able to do this themselves, and make their own rules. So I'm hoping that the point I'm getting to is I'm hoping that more and more people start adopting that mentality and hold strong to it. And there's less people that are like, oh, but I want the glitz and the glamour, and I want to be this, and I want to, be that. And it's like, hey, man, just fucking do what you want to do. Write a song. Anyway.
Yeah. No, trust me. Totally fucking agree.
You said it beautifully. I think if anybody listening to this was on the fence about what to do, if they don't take anything else away from this conversation, it should be that. To help them make their own decision about what direction to go. And I thought that was perfect. It's great to hear. One thing I was going to say going outside of that was, for someone like you who is so passionate about production, what a great, and I'm sure there's a lot others than just Joey Sturgis and Nick Raskulinecz, but I mean, what a great spectrum right there. Of two guys alone to sit with and learn from, because they have very different styles and different approaches. But I was curious, I was going to ask you, when you did work with Nick, if you had that same sort of approach of, I'm in the studio with this legend, like, I'm going to sit down here and watch every freaking thing that he does. I mean, I would imagine that was your approach working with him too.
Yeah, I mean, dude, Nick is something else, dude. He is the reason that I work so well with Nick, and I love that dude to death, and I would work with him 1,000 times over. Is that he's the most truly passionate producer I've ever met, ever. And like, obviously, there's a lot of people who are really passionate, but I just mean as a music fan. Like, this dude fucking loves rock and roll, loves music. I mean, more than any producer I've worked with. And especially for being a dude, I mean, this motherfucker has done Foo Fighters. He's done Rush. He worked at Sound City. It's like, you name it, he has done it.
Dude, that Deftones record, that... Koino Yokan, I think.
Oh yeah. Fucking Deftones, Ghost. I mean, just his resume is bonkers. Yeah. And honestly, the way that quick thing, how I ended up working with him was Brett, the other manager besides Tom, called me one day when I was kind of having writer's block. I was out working on the Disease record in California, and he's like, "Hey, would you ever work with a producer?" And I was like, "I would." I said, but only a specific few people, because I didn't really want to work with a producer. But I was like, who did I say? I said Butch Vig, Greg Fiddleman, who just did the last Metallica record, who is also a fucking beast, and Nick Raskulinecz. Just throwing out these names like there's no way in fucking hell that this would actually happen. And then like 2 days later, I ended up going and getting breakfast with Nick Raskulinecz in LA. And we just sat and talked about music for like fucking 2 hours. And then I went over to his studio in Nashville, and it was the same thing. The first day, we didn't do anything. We just sat there and talked about music. We talked about life, talked about what I wanted to do with this album. And it was perfect. And what I realized is I was like, holy shit, this guy actually is obsessed with fucking music. And then, you know, his credit is executive producer on the record. So basically what that even I mean, who knows what that title means, but essentially what he did for the album, what he did for the record was I went in with like 20 some songs to his place for 5 days before I went in to like actually cut the record. So I cut the record at Blackbird. I did 5 days with him where we just listened to all these songs, and he basically was like, this is good, this is trash, this is whatever, because my ear, it was just white noise to me. I'd heard these songs so many hundreds of times, I didn't even know it was good anymore. And, you know, the way that we tested songs to know if they were like the right arrangements for the album is we'd just put it on the console, crank it way the fuck up. I mean, crazy loud, and just rock out. And like, he was literally just sitting there, just going fucking nuts. And if he would stop the song. And he'd be like, what the fuck's going on? And I was like, what are you talking about? He's like, I stopped rocking. Something's wrong. We got to fix this. And that was our approach to like coming up with the right compositions and whatever. And I've never experienced that before. And this is a dude who's, you know, he's probably 50 some years old. He's been doing records for 30 years. He still is just like, do I feel it or not? If he feels it, then it's good enough. If he doesn't, it doesn't make it. And then on top of that, obviously, there's like, he's maybe the best engineer that's ever walked this fucking earth. And his engineer that works under him is equally incredible. His name's Nathan. He's fucking incredible. But like, so just all those things I took, it was such a different perspective. And it just showed me that like, you have to love what you do. You have to love what you do if you want to be the best. And that's it. Like, if you don't absolutely fucking love it with all your heart, it's really not worth your time when it comes to like a creative passion, you know?
Give me a cowbell, Jordan. Cowbell. Yep.
Fuck it. Yeah, look, I creative passion, sure, but I'd argue that for anything. I mean, look, there's nothing wrong with, say, being an accountant or being a dentist. Those are wonderful services, but like, you should really want to fuck with that. I mean, this is what ends up becoming your life. Now, obviously, maybe someone's value system is just financial, providing financially for self and others, and that's the end-all, be-all as far as how you spend your time. But at least for me, I feel like there's 7.5 billion people in the world. There's infinite ways that we can find ways to be value to some of them enough to make a living. So why not invest the time of your life doing something that truly makes you feel more alive?
Dude, I mean, I could not fucking agree more. I mean, it's weird saying it sometimes just because like, I know I am so blessed. I mean, so blessed. Like, I happen to be in the right place at the right time for a lot of things. I worked very hard for a lot of things, but I know it's all like, I'm a lucky guy. So, you know, it's easier for me to say, just do what you love and fuck everything else. Because, like, there is that reality. Like you were saying, it's like, we have to have fucking dentists and accountants and, you know, desk jobs. And, like, these are important parts of life. But, like, when you really boil it down, when you really boil this shit down, it's like, we got one chance to have a life. And, like, even the chances of us being born, I swear I'm not stoned. You know what I mean? It's just like fucking crazy. Like, the fact that we get to live and breathe at all is remarkable. So it's just not worth half-assing it and wasting your time on shit you don't want to do. It's like, you know, an amazing thing that somebody told me, John Feldmann, actually, who's another producer I've worked with extensively over the years, is I was at his studio one time and I was like completely breaking down. Just like, I don't know what happened, but I just snapped and I'm like crying in the vocal booth and like having a total fucking emotional meltdown. I was just super overworked and falling apart. And he sat me down and we were talking and he's like, when you're on your deathbed, you're not going to be sitting there wishing that you spent more time doing shit you didn't love, that you spent more time being anxious, that you spent more time being depressed or bummed out and not being proactive about it. He's like, you're going to be thinking about all the amazing times that you had in your life and how much you loved those moments. So you might as well do what you love doing. And he's like, and you're doing what you love. You are a fucking musician living your dream. So like, it's time to realize that. And that changed my life. It really did. And, it's just like, we really do get one chance in this life. So just find something that you love to fucking do and go after that shit head first. And if you fall on your face, get up, fucking do it again, because that's it. We get one chance, one life. Make it fucking, make it work. I know it's getting a little philosophical, but like, yeah.
Nah, dude, but like here, look, you prefaced before, like, yo, just so you know, I'm not high right now. Like, I don't think we need to be doing that shit. Like, we need to be normalizing these kinds of mindsets.
For sure.
And it doesn't
Agreed.
need to feel like, it doesn't need to feel hippy dippy or anything like that, or like pie in the sky, if that's still a fucking term, I don't know. But like, it's true. Like, I mean, look, yeah, we might have some, we might have faith in what happens after this, but like, for all we know, this is what we got. And why not make the most of what we got right now? It warms my heart to hear that about John Feldmann. I mean, I was a huge Goldfinger fan when I was younger, and then a really big fan of his production work, in the early 2000s with a lot of the bands that he started working with. And I think a lot of it for me was I just felt some connection to him. And you sharing that story, like, I guess affirms something at a gut level that attracted me to him beyond just the music he made. I fucking love
sick,
that.
Man. That's fucking awesome.
Yeah, man.
Dude, and I love what you just said. That is so true. Like, we do need to just normalize, like, realities of life and what we have, and like it not being fucking a kitschy thing to like be stoked to be alive. Like, it's fucking incredible. And yeah, man, that's big.
Dude, what a gift to be alive, and how disrespectful to that gift and to ourselves to not spend the privilege of our lifetime to do something that lights us up.
Right. Fuck yeah.
Yeah, man. I think we should also normalize thinking about death. I do that often. I love that Feldman shared that because thinking about death isn't morbid. I think it gives us gratitude for the gift of life. It pulls at the other end of it.
Yo, it's huge, man. It's huge. Because, like, it's just so true. It's like, for all we know, this is it. We get one fucking ride.
Right.
It's like, you want to boil it down? We get one ride. Make the fucking best of it. Because when it's over, you're not going to be sitting there thinking that shit about, like, God, I wish I would have worried about that more. No. You're going to be thinking, like, man, I wish, I remember how fucking kick-ass that night was when we played that show, and then we all went and hung out and got pizza, or when I accomplished this goal of mine, or whatever the fuck it may be, big or small. It's like, that's what's going to matter.
I think about that when it does apply to things like anxiety or like something that I worry about that's so trivial. I'll spend time worrying about this like one thing that like does not fucking matter, and it's good to get a reminder of like, when you're on your deathbed, you're gonna be pissed at yourself for spending minutes or longer thinking about this fucking dumbass thing that didn't matter. It's just it's good to hear. It's good to think about that.
Yeah, man.
As we start to wrap this up, I apologize if I've shared this prior on one of these podcast episodes. But look, the two things I've always been most naturally attracted to since I was a really young kid is, music and pro wrestling. And throughout my life, I've got to live out a ton of my dreams as a musician, performing on stage for people that gave a fuck, to offer the privilege of their time and their energy and their money at a show. With pro wrestling, a few years ago, I worked for Ring of Honor Wrestling. I got them to create a leadership position for me. And at the time, they were the number 2 wrestling company in the Western world, at least. And I was so fucking terrified to ask. Now, I had already developed the relationship with the COO. I put in intentional work to put myself in a position to make it more likely that I would get a yes when I asked for a real opportunity. But I was fucking terrified. I was terrified of what that meant to the other careers that I spent time building. I was terrified of being rejected. I was terrified of jumping into an ocean that I'd never swam in before. All kinds of different reasons why. And it really took imagining myself lying on my deathbed and feeling the pain of regret for not fucking trying. And as soon as I had that experience, that got me over the hump to make a plan. Tomorrow at 1 p.m., I'm giving this man a call and telling him I'm ready to contribute at a high level. And that's what I did. But it really took the feeling of, when my time is done, and if I get the privilege of a deathbed to reflect on how I spent the privilege of my time, how am I going to feel? And now that I did the pro wrestling thing on top of doing a bunch in music, like, I feel fucking good about what I've done. There's shit I want to do. There's shit I still want to be doing. But I feel like, man, at this point in my life, like, I did it. And that feels good.
Mm-hmm. You got to say yes.
It's huge.
You got to say yes, right? If you even want it this much, don't let the fear take over. And I apologize for saying this over and over. And Jordan, you might know what I'm going to say, but our doubts are traitors. And that is a quote I live by. Our doubts are traitors that make us lose the good we oft might win by fearing to attempt. And you don't know this, Caleb, but that was when I was in university. I took an acting 101 class, and that's what the teacher said the first day. He was like, if you don't learn anything else from this class, memorize this quote and apply it to anything you do in life. Our doubts are traitors, and that's what it was all about. And I had an experience with John Feldmann that was like one of those moments. And I probably have told this story on the podcast too, but long story short, I'm with a friend. I don't know if you know Brandon, who used to work with John. So I'm with Brandon, and we're at a Pinkberry, and John calls Brandon and is like, hey, dude, know any drummers? And he's like, I'm standing right next to one. So he's like, cool. Does he want to do a session right now? Bring him in. And it was like one of those moments where it was like, oh, okay. Like, I don't know what I'm about to record. I don't even have drumsticks on me. I don't have a drum set. Do I say yes? And it was like, what do you do? And as much fear and doubt as I had that quote going in my head. I was like, fuck yeah, I'm going to go do this. I love John Feldmann. I love everything he does. Long story short, I walked in there and it was All Time Low was there. And I grew up with those guys. They live right, down the road. So it was like, oh, this isn't scary. And then John's like, oh, you guys know each other? Cool. Go in the tracking room and sit on the drums. And it was, I mean, it was like, it was one of, I've said this so many times before, but it was like my favorite drum tracking session that I've ever done. I didn't know the music. I didn't know what I was getting into. And it was the only session I've ever done like that. He was in my ears the whole time, telling me what to play right before I played it and not letting me stop. And it was exhilarating and fun, and it worked out great. And it built so much confidence. It gave me so much confidence to be able to say yes to more opportunities like that. And it's opened more doors, not because that opportunity specifically led me down a path through networking, but the experience gave me the confidence and the gall to be able to say yes to more things when they're in front of me and to go for it so I don't have regrets. And I'm just so thankful of opportunities like that one in particular, to work with people like that. It's just, not to go on a John Feldmann kick, but he's a pretty special dude when it comes to motivating people, Yeah.
Dude, it's so funny that you have a story like that about Feldmann. Well, first off, I know that you know what it's like to track drums with fucking John Feldmann. It is the craziest experience in the world.
Yeah.
It is just fucking high octane, the most caffeinated, like, play this beat, go, 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 go.
Yeah.
Click starts, fucking just play, which is nuts. But, dude, honestly, I owe Feldmann so much. Like, he called me right when I quit Attack. He called me and he was like, hey, I want you to move to LA. I want you to come work with me. Like, you start writing with me. I'm working on my projects. And I was like, yeah. And I just said, yeah, I had no idea. And he was like, all right, send me a fucking thing of all these songs. And there happened to be some Beartooth songs in there. And then he was like, what is this? And then he's like, hey, I'm working with this new label, Red Bull. And, long story short, it's like, he was, one of the huge reasons I got signed at all and gave me confidence for Beartooth. But Had I not said yes to wanting to work with him and then ended up sending him the songs and shit, I would have missed out on what Beartooth is now. So you got to fucking say yes. You just got to do it. Yes. Because it comes out in so many different ways.
Yeah, you never know. You never know where it's going to end up. And the story, probably very similarly to your story, it's like how you got here is a very straggly, crazy line that you could never redraw. But that's the beauty of it. And that's why you can't just fall into a formula or like, you know, building blocks that work for everybody. It doesn't work for everybody. You know, you gotta just take advantage of your opportunities, do what you love, and hopefully if you're doing what you love, there should be no rush to get to the end, and enjoy where it takes you, because every time you say yes to something, you're going to have even more opportunities to do cool shit. And yeah, that's what it's about. So
100%.
Yeah. Thanks, man. This was awesome. I definitely enjoyed getting your perspective on things and hearing what you're doing and hearing kind of how you approach this time. And I'm excited to see what music comes out of this. You know, I think, if your music is a reflection of where you are as a person, then it should be the best shit yet. You know?
That is my hope. That is my hope, man. And like, I know, you know, most people, every time they have a new record, they're like, oh, this is the best one. But like, no, this is the fucking best one. Like, I'm so ready for this new music to come out. Holy shit.
I'm looking forward,
man. I just want people to fucking hear it. But yeah.
That's awesome. Well, that shit that you wrote for GGD. By the way, people are gonna
yes.
People are gonna listen to this and be like, "What the fuck are they talking about?" Because haven't talked. You know, we won't talk about it yet. But even that was like, fuck yeah. I sent it around to Nolly and I sent it around to the other guys, and they were like, "This is sick." So if it has any of that energy and aggression to it that had, then you're gonna have a killer album on your hands. So.
Thank you, man. I appreciate it. Well, I'll make sure to send you something.
Yeah, anytime. Right Jordan.
On. Yeah, let's take this shit out, guys. Well, look, the circuitous roots of our individual lives has brought us all together over Zoom during a global pandemic and for a podcast in the namesake of a French pastry. And honestly, I leave this conversation with more energy. I feel inspired to continue executing and even like just pushing the gas harder on the things that I'm trying to make happen in my life. So to you, Caleb, to you, Matt, I want to thank you both publicly for sharing the past 90 minutes with me. And Caleb, for taking the time to come on with us. Thank you, man. You are fucking a diamond in the rough, my friend.
I appreciate that, Jordan. Thank you much. Very nice to meet you. And seriously, guys, thank you for having me. At any fucking time, you let me know. I'm here.
Thank you, brother. For those watching on YouTube, youtube.com/Chocolate Croissants, or listening on your podcast app, we thank you for hanging with us. We do not take your attention lightly, quite frankly. Facebook.com/groups/Chocolate Croissants. Oh, I'm getting kind of intense with that cowbell. It's our private Facebook group. If you're listening to me right now, you're welcome to join us there. It is a private, global, supportive, creative community of a bunch of people interested in interesting things and most importantly, self-improvement. So that is where we hang out. Hang out with us there. Hey, we never fucking asked this, but like on your Apple Podcast or whatever else, like leave a rating, or on YouTube. Subscribe. We don't ask for much. We do this because we love it, but y'all know what the fuck it does for us. It helps get these conversations that we're trying to normalize out there much more than it may be at this point. That is it. His name is Caleb. He has a band. It's called Beartooth. Go fucking check them out. He's got a bunch of music. It's coming out some point. Maybe be responsible. Stay the fuck home. We'll wear a mask so this guy can get out on the road again. That's it. All right, I'm going to hit the cowbell one more time. I'm going to throw the mallet across the room. I got a half a banana. I'm going to slam it on the floor. I made a fucking mess, but we'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.